Hello and welcome to Ivory Blush Roses. My name is Lisa and today we're stitching seam 8 on the CQtober project. Now I've done a little work overnight. I took all those basted seams and I whip stitched all those seams down. I didn't film any of it because I showed a little bit of that in the last video. I'm so much happier with it. I know the pieces are stable. They're not going to be pulling out of one another. I know exactly where everything is. And I don't have to worry about getting something stuck in a wrong position. So I'm really pleased with that. Let's go ahead and pick our seam for the day. Now, when I'm doing this, I can't see what's in here. I'm just trying to pick one of them. So there we have one. Let's see what it is. Okay. Today is another one that I haven't done in a long time. It's Wheatear Stitch. And this is almost a standalone stitch, but I also think it would be good for one of those longer seams. So that's really exciting. I'm really pleased with that. Here you can see all those whip stitched seams. I have a little bulk in a couple of spots, but I think it's better than it was. So let me get it in a hoop. Actually, maybe we should pick our seam first. Hold on. Let's do that. I know that I wanted to stitch one of those longer seams, and I was thinking about this one. We also have this really long one and this one here. But trying to stay kind of in the center, I think this would be a good one to do. Let's do that one. Let me get it set up in the hoop, and then I'll put it on the frame, and then we'll be back. Before we get started, I'm thinking about this Wheatear stitch. As you can see, I do not have very many variations for Wheatear in my book. These are the only 3 I have. So I'm looking at these, and this is the pretty traditional Wheatear here. This one's got some cast on stitch, and that's a little more work than I want to do on this project. But I'm kind of liking this one. So it's Wheatear, and it's got 2 ears on it with lazy daisies on it. I'm kind of thinking that might be a nice seam. Let's do that one. Now the next thing we need to do is choose our colors. I still have my tray of colors. I did tuck this beige back in and this one because I just kept feeling like, there might be something that comes up. We'll see. I'm not sure yet. We're going to be doing this seam here. I probably will start over here and come, just because that does round a little bit there, and then this will be a separate seam here. So we're going to go this way. What color thread do we want on this? Now, on this top half, green would be great, but then we're going to get down into here where the green is, and none of these show up beautifully against that. I do keep playing with this one, but I just feel like when it gets to those really dark spots, it sort of disappears in it. So I'm not sure. I think it needs to go against something lighter. And then we've used a lot of our various kind of golds and lighter oranges, but I'm thinking one of those is probably going to be what we use. So which one do we want? I mean, it would be very traditional to use a nice gold in there, and that would show up really wonderfully against all of those. I like that one a lot, actually. And then I wonder if there is a green that we could use against that. Because I like the variety of color. I really like bringing that in. We have our darker burgundy here. I keep calling this a burgundy, but it's really kind of a rusty, a burnt orange. And that's going to get lost against that orange velvet. So I just don't think it's going to work great. Now, I suppose the other option we'd have would be to do that brighter orange. But somehow I feel like we need green in there. So we have our 3 choices. So this one is the warm one. Then we have the mid-toned one, which is a little cooler. And then we have this last one that's the coolest one. This is definitely more of a blue-green color. So I'm curious which one you like best. Do you like the warmer one here? I'm looking at those to see which one shows up best, and I think the cooler one probably shows up a little bit better. But I think the other two are pretty equal is the way they show up. And on the brown and on the orange, I think they're all good. So I guess we're going to go with the cool one on that. So let me put these other ones away. Well, we got it figured out. So let me get a needle threaded here and we will be off and stitching. I'm guessing it's going to take a couple of lengths of thread to do this seam. I need to stop and think about how to do this stitch because it's been a while since I've done it. So when all else fails, you get out the embroidery book, and I'm using Judith Baker Montano's Embroidery and Crazy Quilt Stitch Tool. I love it. It's small, it's portable, and it's got pretty straightforward and easy to understand instructions. So here's our Wheatear stitch. We'll start with our two little ears and then make our lazy daisy through it. I'm going to start this one right over here. And remember, we're going to be doing 2 sets of ears. So we're going to go right to the center of our seam. I'm going to start this one right over here. And remember, we're going to be doing 2 sets of ears. So we're going to go right to the center of our seam. I'm going to make a short pair of ears and then a slightly longer pair of ears, and especially this first one where I don't have as much space. We will just do that. And I'm going to go ahead and make my longer set. So we're running right into that other one. We're going to adjust this one a little bit as I go here till I'm happy with how it's looking. Yeah, I think that one is better on that side. But now we're going to come down and make our lazy daisy. And I'm going to thread under those. Ooh, this might be a little hard on this velvet. We'll see. Yeah, that works. All right, and then we're going to come up with our shorter one and go down right there at the base. I really want them to all come into the same spot if I can, and I'm realizing that the pile on this fabric makes it hard to see exactly where that spot is. And then we're going to go out cat hair. Surprise, surprise. All right, now we're going to come down. And I'm going to try and use the back side of this needle to thread through. I'm pushing up from the bottom so I can get it away from the stitches I did previously. And then going down right where we came up. That's good. I think that's a slightly better size for this. I may need to see if I can adjust my light here. I think we're okay. We're going to try it. I did Wheatear Stitch on the very first crazy quilt that I ever did, and I'm not sure if I have done it since then. I think that's working okay. And now we're free of all these other seams, so I can really make sure that I'm getting those longer ones right where I want them to be. In my diagram that I'm looking at over there, I think I actually drew them with the feathers coming down this way. But that's fine. This goes in a different direction than all the stuff around it, so it's working. I'm thinking I was just going under the little things here, and I have to really go under everything when I do these. So I need to remember that as I go. I think it makes a better looking stitch. If you're seeing the little fleck of green there, that's my stitching, where I stitched all the pieces of fabric down. By going under all the stitches, I think that's going to actually help keep them up out of the ditch of that seam as well. So that's a good thing. Well, we've still got quite a ways to go, so I'm going to speed this up. I will be back when I've got the whole seam stitched with this gold. I'll put a little bit of this on time lapse. Turn over. Where I did the basting, it left little indentations in some of these fabrics, I've noticed. When I have the light really bright like I do right now, it reflects. So it keeps catching my eye, and I keep going to check to see what's going on there. I'm liking the subtle variations of this thread as well. How it goes from the brighter gold to more of a brown gold. So it's not a hard stitch, it's a little more involved stitch. Especially with the variation that I'm doing with extra ears on it. And so on this one, where we're coming up against this seam, I'm not going to do the ears on the left side of the seam, but I will do them on the right side. So I'm going to miss this one here as well. So we just have two of these here with the ears only on one side, because it just doesn't make sense to be pushing it out into that other stuff. I think it just gets looking too chaotic, and then it doesn't look as nice. So we'll skip it for now. And now we should be back to doing it regularly. So back up on this side for the first time in this green. More cat hair. You would not believe how many times I have used the lint brush on this just in preparation for stitching today. Mushu has got this downy coat. It's like he doesn't have any guard hairs, so he's just got the downy undercoat, and it just wafts off of him in clouds. I am really liking the effect of this one, and I'm wondering why I'm not using it more frequently, because this is really cool. It's really a neat stitch. And to be truthful, I really don't even need to add anything to it if I don't want to. I'm really glad we did the gold on this. I think that was the perfect color for it. Well, we'll see if I've got enough to do a couple of ears here. And again, I'm finding I need to exaggerate just a little bit, since the pile of the fabric kind of swallows up some of it. Well, let's go ahead and try, see if we can finish this one off. It'll be close. Okay, let's turn that over. Oh, it's got to go the other way. I always forget. I'm glad we chose this one for a big seam. It's really going to be sort of a show-off seam, isn't it? I think we're going to have just barely enough thread to finish this seam. Now, there's all those fabrics coming together there. There's a bit of a lump right there, so we'll see how that does as we stitch over it. Another tip for working with these heavy velveteens is trim your seams, especially in the corners here. I think I left a little too much. I'm also loving the way this curves along here. All right, I think we have one more lazy daisy, and we're going to call it good in here, and then we're going to just do the 2 ears on one side again. And while technically we could probably fit another half of a lazy daisy in there, I think it's going to be a little too much. And since we've got another seam still coming in here, that will leave a little room for it. All right, so there's that. So let me turn that, make my knot. I have just enough thread to make the knot easily. Let's change to our green. I definitely am preferring the seams that are a little bit brighter. And in the art world, a lot of times we say, if you want something to show up, then you need to have the contrast. And it can be contrast in color, it can be contrast in value, but it can also be contrast between cool colors and warm colors. I guess we could add another one there and say between warm and cool, but in dusty and bright. So if you've got rather muted colors, which most of these fabrics are, the brighter threads show up more on top of them. Where if you had bright fabrics, it might be the muted threads that showed up. So you just have to play with it and find what is your preferred method. So I can go straight out, or I can bring them down. And I'm actually thinking I'm going to leave the one on the inside with no lazy daisy. We're just going to put the lazy daisy on the outside one. We're going to start down here at the bottom, and I'm going to try bringing them down at an angle. Now, on this green, this is the most blue-green of all the fabrics right here. So our blue-green thread is not going to show up nearly as well on that. So it's going to be hard to see it until we get a little further up. So I think I'm going to actually come and just go up one side and down the other on this. And I'm not going to worry if the angle of these varies slightly, because that's the way it is in nature. Don't be afraid of a little irregularity. So did I make the right choice dangling them down? I think it does make it a little bit more interesting. I will tell you, I am slower stitching on the embroidery frame than I am when I'm stitching in hand, and I think that's because we're stab stitching almost exclusively here, where in hand I tend to do a little more of that scoop stitching. I hate to say it, but I think I actually liked it better when it didn't have the lazy daisies in it. You know, the more I look at it, the less I like these lazy daisies. I really preferred that seam without them. So I'm going to do something I rarely do. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to pull them out. Like I said, I just rarely do this. And they're not really a fun stitch to pull out, so we may cheat here. I don't think it has to do with the varying angles of it. I think I liked the simplicity of the other seam. Okay, so I'm going to turn this over and we're going to take it out from this side. Hopefully, that's the plan. I rarely do this. I mean, this is an exceptional rarity for me to dislike something that much that I'm willing to cut it out. It's one of the reasons I spend so much time checking colors of thread, because I don't like tearing stuff out. That's probably our knot. And then we'll just clean it up from this side. And I guess we're going to leave that seam that way. Now that velvet, I'm just fluffing it up with my fingernail. Let me know if you would have done something different. You know, I thought about doing French knots, and I think I don't want anything else on it. I like seeing it the way it is. Let me take it off the frame and let's take a look at it. Maybe I'll have a better idea if I want to try something else on it from there. So hold on a minute and I'll be right back. Now we can see the whole thing. And now that I look at it where I can see the whole piece, I don't mind it being just by itself. I think it actually goes in very nicely. I'm glad I took those out. I wasn't happy with them. And it would have been something I looked at every single time and gone, I wish I'd done something different. So I'm glad I did it. It was a little bit of time, but worth making the change, I think. It's not as obvious that it's only got one color as I thought it was going to be. But it also means that now, somewhere else, I need to be doing single stitches on a couple of seams to pull that idea through. Let me know if you've ever taken a bunch of stitching out like that. I probably can count on one hand the number of times in my life I have done that, but I'm pleased with how it's turning out. That seam took a turn that I did not expect to have happen on this project. Thank you so much for watching. I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Have a beautiful day, happy stitching, and I'll see you tomorrow.